Yeah, hi students. Today we are going to discuss process costing. Okay, this is one of the topic in section D of CMA part 1. We are going to discuss this topic in detail in the coming slides. Okay, first of all, what is process costing and when you are going to use process costing in accounting? So process costing is used when there is mass production of similar products. So the scenario here is you are just making one product, but that product is coming out of different process. You can see an example. You are making a soft drink, but that has gone through different process, and you cannot find out the cost of one unit individually. In this case, it is going through multiple process, and finally you have a mass production of the same product. So what you have to do, you have to accumulate all the cost for a period of time. It can be for a day or for a month or for an year. You will accumulate all the cost for the for a particular period, then summarize it, then allocate that cost to the number of units produced. For example, today we spent $100,000 and we produced X units. So allocate this cost to the total number of units and you will get cost of a single product. Okay, cost of a single unit, I will say. This is what actually process costing means. So examples of the industries where these types of production occurs include oil refining, food production, chemical processing. In all these industries, we have to use process costing to find out the cost of a single unit. Here we have the example again. How would you determine the precise cost required to create 1 gallon of aviation fuel when thousands of gallons of the same fuel are pouring out of the refinery every hour? So every hour thousands of gallons of aviation fuel is continuously coming out of the refinery. Then how you are going to calculate the cost of single gallon of aviation fuel? In that case, we will use process costing. Okay, so we have an example here, a simplified example. You are in a cupcake manufacturing unit. Okay, and in this, while making cupcake, you have to go through 3 different processes. It is just an assumption only. The actual scenario may be different, so it is just an assumption. So you have to go through different process. First is mixing, then you will bake it, then you will pack it. Okay, so every process you will have raw material cost, you will have labor cost, and you will have overhead cost. This is going to be there in all the process. So we can take an example of mixing. Raw material cost is 10,000, labor cost is 5,000, overhead is 10,000. Total your cost is 25,000. So first process what you are doing in this manufacturing unit is mixing. Now once the mixing is over, then you have to transfer these to baking. So all these products now transfer to baking. So what you will do, you will take this cost and you will transfer this cost to baking department. So now baking department will have its own cost, which is 5,000 for raw material, 5,000 for labor cost, and 10,000 for overheads. So till now, including mixing and baking, your total cost is now 45,000. Okay, now from the baking department, once the baking is over, these products will be transferred to packing department. So till here we spend 45,000. So that cost we will transfer to packing department. And even packing department will have its own raw material, labor, and overhead. So total cost here is now by end of the process, it is 60,000. Okay. Now assume that we spent 60,000 and this 60,000 we spent for making 30,000 unit. This is the quantity. So what is the total, sorry, what is the per unit cost of cupcake? It is coming $2. How? 60,000 divided by 30,000. Again, it is just a hypothetical situation. Don't look for the actual values. Don't compare this number with the actual values and all. Okay. So now you got $2 per unit of cupcake made. Okay. So imagine if this is the situation. Okay. You have three processes and every process is incurring that much of cost, and you got finally total 60,000 from three process divided by total quantity, you got $2. But imagine if this is a cost of a day mixing. Once the mixing is done, this cost is transferred or this product is transferred to baking, then these people will stay idle there? No. Correct? They will be working continuously. They are working and transferring to baking. Same like once the baking is completed, it is transferred to packing. But once it is transferred to packing, are they going to stay idle? No. They are continuously doing baking and packing is continuously happening. So this scenario will not be there in a practical sense. We will get the total cost of the total units produced in a day. No, it cannot be, right? Because if you stop your work, say 5 o'clock in the evening, you will have some work which is not completed. But you incurred cost on that, right? Same way you have work completed that can be solved out. So whatever today's cost, that has to be segregated between two. One is goods completed and some other cost is goods not completed. Okay, so this is how we have to do the accounting actually. So I will give one more example here. We have three processes here: process 1, 2, and 3. Okay, every process you have material, labor, and overhead. So we can take an example. The first process, you spend $30. Okay, out of this $30, $20 worth goods are completed and $10 worth is not completed from the first process. Okay, now from the first process, whatever completed will go to second process. This 20 has transferred here, and second process will have its own cost of $30. So now the total cost is $50 and goods completed is for the worth of 40 and goods not completed is $10. Okay, now the accumulated value of goods completed is $40. Now whatever goods completed, we will transfer this to third process. Correct? So that $40 goods transferred to third process and we'll be working again on this. So we will have to record more cost. So $30 more. Now your total cost is now 70. Out of this, we can say 60 worth goods are completed and 10 is again not completed. So now whatever completed, which is 60, that will be transferred to your finished goods inventory store, and once it is sold, it will be going to cost of goods sold. Okay, now we will examine this further. You can see my total cost incurred is 30, 30, 30 in three process, total 90. Okay, and the cost of goods completed is accumulated here and 60 is accumulated. So where are the 30? 30 is in the units complete, not completed. So now what you are doing actually is this $90 is segregated between 60 and 30. Okay, now you know how much cost is there in the ending inventory at the end of the day and how much cost is there in the completed goods. Okay, but again, how we are going to do this? How we got this $20 or how we got this $10? So for this, we have to work on the actual units completed, and we have to discuss something called EUP, equivalent units of production. Okay, so we have to discuss about that. So this picture, it is actually telling you the concept of EUP. What is EUP? EUP in process costing stands for equivalent units of production. It represents partially completed units expressed in terms of fully completed units. Or we can say, I worked on 100 units and it is completed 70%. So what is EUP for this 100 unit? 100 multiplied by 70%, or we will say 70 is the EUP, equivalent unit. So rather than 100 units fully completed, we are choosing 70 EUP because it is not fully completed, only 70% completed. So we are assuming that we have goods worth 70 units which is fully completed. Actually, we worked on 100 units. So this example, it is showing you, you have here 4 tables which is partially completed. We can say 50% completed, again assumption only. So these 4 partially completed tables, 50% completed, we can say we have 2 full table. That is what EUP concept is. We can say we have 2 fully completed tables, or EUP is fully completed 2 tables. But when we are calculating EUP, you can just imagine, maybe when you started working on something, you will add the materials, then you will start working on it. Okay, so when in process costing, we have to consider both the cost. What is the cost of material have been included, and what's the cost of the work done? What's the work done? It is called as conversion cost. Or we can say these are the cost of direct labor and manufacturing overhead, or the cost to convert the raw material into finished product. So how much you spend to convert the material to finished product? Okay, so you have your material here, and how much cost incurred to convert this material into finished products. So we will be having now 2 types of cost. Now we have to find out EUP for both of this cost. If I say I incurred 100% of direct material, then EUP is 100. So you are working on 1000 units and you incurred 70% of conversion cost, then we will say EUP is 70. So for both, we have to find out EUP. So we can say I'm working on 1000 units, materials we added 50%. So we will say material EUP is 500. So 1000 units we started working on, but only 50% of the materials added in each units. So 1000 multiplied by 50%, you will get 500. Same way, you have conversion cost, which is labor cost and overhead. You spend only 30% on this 1000 units. So what is your EUP? EUP is only 300. How you got it? 1000 multiplied with 30%. So for process costing calculation, we have to find out EUP for materials and EUP for conversion cost. It is based on what? It is just based on what is the percentage of completion for both. So we can see our first process in our previous example. I am just assuming that we incurred direct material, labor and cost, and overheads. The total is $30, and in that units completed worth is $20, and not completed is $10. So how we calculated this? So again, another assumption we are making, this $30 I spend on 40 units. Okay, and out of these 40 units, 20 units fully completed, and another 20 units it is just completed 50% only. So here we will have EUP. So 20 units fully completed, your EUP is 20 units only. But 20 units 50% completed, your EUP is 10. So what is your total EUP? Your total EUP is now 30 units. So equivalent units you worked today is on 30 units, which is 20 units completed 100% and 20 units 50% completed, and you spend $30. So what is your per unit cost of EUP? You will take $30 divide by 30 units, you will get $1 per unit of EUP. Now when you know the EUP per when you know the cost per EUP, you can calculate how much is there in completed and how much is there in not completed. So we know 20 units fully completed multiplied by $1, which we calculated here. So $20 is in units completed, and 10 units, which is equivalent to which is EUP of this 20 units multiplied by 50%. So 10 units multiplied by $1, this $10 is the cost of the units not completed. Okay, so now if we found this cost of completed and cost of not completed, now we can transfer the cost of completed to the next department, correct, or next process. And this cost will stay in the same department, and in the next period we will work on this again to complete these units. So this is the scenario of cost flow in process costing. So now here we are going to work on process costing in steps. So here we can see that there are 7 steps in process costing. It is just our own way. People will have different ways. Our own way. In our way, we will have 7 steps in process costing. Okay. So this, I am not reading this now. We are going to do each of these steps one by one in the coming slides. First, we have to determine physical flow of goods. So what is physical flow of goods? We are just determining how many units we are going to work or we are working on. During this period, how many units we are working on. That is what physical flow of goods. So when you start this month, for example, there was 100 units, which was 50% completed, and there is 1000 units came from the previous process. So how many units I am working on this period? This period I am working on 1000 units, which came or transferred in from the previous department, and I was having 100 units in the beginning of the period. So total I am working on 1100 units. Okay, so there are 2 places unit can come from and 2 places they can be at the end of the period. So from where the units will come, the first one is beginning inventory, the second one is transferred in. So as I said, example, I was having 100 in the beginning and new 1000 units transferred in from the previous department. Now I am working on 1100 units, right? So this 1100 unit has to be there in our department if it is not spoiled. So this 1100 unit, maybe we can say we completed 900 units and transferred out to next department. That means 200 units are there in the ending work in progress, because 1100 we worked on, 900 gone out to next department means 200 is not gone, so that should be there in the ending work in progress. So this 1100 and this 1100 has to match. So that's what this equation is showing units in beginning inventory plus units transferred in, that has to be equal to ending work in progress and units completed. So this is what first we have to determine how many units we are working on. Okay, so you will have units completed last period, but certain percentage only. The rest of the percentage completed this period. Then you have units started this period and also completed this period. Then you have just started but not completed. Okay, so this is what actually physical flow of goods, this is what you have to account for. How many units this month or this period I am working on? I am working on this many units. So I have to consider three things. So here the example. Here there is no work in progress in the beginning and started during the period is 35,000. There was no beginning. So how many you have to account for? Obviously 35,000 I have to account for. Then we will see by end of the period where is this 35,000. So here it is mentioned 30,000 is transferred out and 5,000 is still in work in progress. So here it is mentioned in this 5,000 100% and 20%. This we will discuss later. Just note that 100% and 20%. This is actually denoting 100% of the material added for this 5,000 and only 20% of the conversion cost added to this 5,000 units. Okay, but now we are not discussing that. We are just looking at the physical units. So 30,000 transferred out, 5,000 I have. So this is matching, right? As per our formula, this has to match. Now, second step, calculate the number of units started and completed. So I want to calculate now how many units I have started and completed during the period. So I have my completed number of units for the period, but is all these units started this period? No, there was some opening inventory, so that we have to minus to find out how many units started and completed. So how you will calculate? You will take number of units completed, from that you will minus number of units in the beginning work in progress. So this way you will know how many units I actually started during the period and completed during the period. This we should know, later we will understand, maybe we will be dealing with the different layers of costing and all. So we have to know this, how many units started and completed. So two things we know, that how many units we worked on and how many units we started and completed during the period. So two things we know now. So here we can find out the completed is 30,000, from that minus the opening is 0. So started and completed during the period is 30,000. We know that 5,000 is not completed. So what is completed minus the beginning work in process? That way you will calculate started and completed. The third step, we have to determine when materials are added. Why we have to do this? We know that material can be added in the beginning for some product, or maybe material will be added by end of the product, or maybe materials are added during the process. Why we need to know that? Because when we are calculating the EUP, okay, equivalent units of production, if we know that materials are added when conversion process is 50%. Okay, for example, in our cake manufacturing unit, so there are certain temperature level has to reach to add the rest of the material. Okay, so that temperature level normally reach when the process is almost 40% complete. So if process is completed by 40%, that means materials are added. If it is not completed by 40%, we will assume that materials are not added. For example, process is completed only by 30%. So we cannot add material because it is not, the pot is not hot enough. So to determine if the materials are added or not added, we should know when the materials are normally added. So here we can see if materials are added when the process is 50% complete as to conversion cost. When the process is 50% completed as to conversion cost, the ending work in process is only 40% complete now. Okay, so that means no materials are added. But if work in process is 60% completed in terms of conversion cost, that means we added all the material. So just to determine if the materials are added or not, we should know when normally the materials are added, at what percentage of production. This is the third step. The fourth step is what? Calculate EUP, equivalent units of production, that we discussed already. Calculate EUP. So here this calculation determines how many units would have been completed if the company had started and completed each unit before starting the next. So how many units would have been completed if you are following, like you will complete one unit fully, then only you will start another. If that is the way, how many units you could have been completed? So this already we discussed about EUP, and in EUP calculation we said 100 units that are 25% complete will be considered as 25 EUP. So 100 units that is 25% completed, we will consider as 25 completed units. Okay, actually it is 100 units completed 25% only, but EUP is 25 units 100% completed. So this example again we have seen this, but as we discussed earlier, we have to calculate EUP for both conversion cost and material cost. Okay, so here we can see the flow of production. Completed and transferred out is 30,000 in terms of material and 30,000 in terms of conversion. How? Because we said 30,000 units that is transferred out. Transferred out means all the materials are added, all the work is done. That is why it is transferred out, right? So 30,000 transferred out. In that 100% of the EUP, or so 100% of the materials are added. So here EUP is 100%. So 30,000 is the EUP for material and 30,000 is for conversion cost. Now we have left with 5,000 units, and in our previous example it is mentioned in 5,000 units 100% completed in terms of material. So here EUP for material is 5,000, but 20% is only completed for conversion cost. So your EUP is 5,000 multiplied by 20%, or we can say it is 1,000. So here our total EUP for material is 35,000 only, but for conversion cost it is only 31,000, or we can say the cost equivalent to the units of 31,000 only added, whereas the cost equivalent to 35,000 units are added. So now we got what's the quantity for material and what's the quantity for conversion cost. Quantity in the sense EUP. We are talking about EUP. So we found now EUP for material and conversion cost. This is a question just to understand how EUP is calculated. We can see here John started 50,000 units and completed 10,000 units. Okay, leaving 5,000 units in process of 30%. So how many equivalent units of production did Johns have for the period? So 10,000 units 100% completed, and 5,000 units 30% completed. That means equivalent unit is 1,500. So 1,500 plus 10,000, the EUP is going to be 11,500. So this is how we will calculate the EUP. So we calculate the EUP for material and conversion cost. Now it is calculation of cost incurred. We know the quantity on which we worked. Now we will see what are the cost. So we have here direct material cost of 84,050 and we have conversion cost of 62,000. This is the total cost incurred during the period, whether it is completed, whether it is for completed goods or whether it is for incompleted goods. This is the total cost incurred, 146,050. Now what we have to do actually is this cost we have to allocate to good units, sorry, not good units, completed units. Obviously it is good units, completed units, and we have to transfer the cost of the completed units to the next department, and for the cost which is on not completed unit, that has to stay in the same department. So we have to segregate this amount into two now. Okay, that is what we are going to do in the sixth step. So we are going to do here calculating cost per EUP. So we have calculated EUP and we also have the cost, correct? So we'll take the cost for the period and we will take the number of equivalent units. So this we have to do for both material and conversion cost. So we will go to the next slide. So we know that material cost is 84,050 we incurred, and that is equal to, that is for equivalent unit of 35,000, because we added all the materials, there is no material left. So per unit cost of material is 2.4, 84,050 divided by 35,000. Now conversion cost, our conversion cost is 62,000. This is for how many EUPs? EUP we calculated 31,000 EUP, and we will get $2 per conversion cost of EUP. So 2.4 plus 2, this is the cost of per unit. 2.4 for direct material and 2 for conversion cost. So total you have here 4.40. Now what we will do, we will do the allocation of cost to the products. So now we know what the per unit cost of EUP. So what next is, we have to find out how many units are there in finished goods and how many units are there in work in progress, and we have to allocate the total cost between these two types of inventories. So in step 4 we got, this is the total cost, and in step 5 we assign the total cost. How we will do that? The total completed and transferred out unit is 30,000 there, right? So that means it is completely transferred out. That means it is fully completed in terms of material and in terms of labor cost, sorry, in terms of conversion cost. So we can take the total 4.4 and multiply that with 30,000. So 132,000 is transferred out to the next department, because 30,000 is completed and transferred out, in which all the costs are accumulated. Now we have 5,000 units left with us. So in this, how much cost we will have in terms of material? Material, we know that for 5,000 units, all the cost is incurred. Materials are completely added. So EUP is 5,000 multiplied with 2.4 we calculated earlier. So 12,500 12,007 is the direct material in work in progress. It is still with us. It is not transferred out. Why? Because the work is not completed. Only 20% of the work is completed. That is why here EUP is 1000. And we know per unit cost of EUP is $2 and this is 2000. So 132,000 gone out. This 14,007 is still with us and the total cost is 146,000, right? So out of this 146,050, this cost is gone out. This cost is still in the work in progress with us. Okay, so this is how we will segregate the total cost between units completed and units incomplete. So these are the journal entries. If we want to do further scrutiny, we can say the first journal entry is like you are buying the materials, right? So you are buying it maybe on credit. So you will be having a credit of accounts payable and all this cost is going to assembly. This is the first process. 84,000 is in assembly. Same like that, we will have work in progress in terms of conversion. So everything will be added to assembly cost and we will credit various accounts. So now you have in the assembly cost, in the assembly department 62,000 and 84,000, which is 144,000, 46,000. Now when the work is completed, whatever the completed goods gone to other department, the cost also have to go to other department, right? So we will credit assembly unit for 132,043 that we calculated earlier and it is gone to next department, which is finishing department. So in assembly you can see that we have 132,000 credit and we have 146,000 debit. So where is the rest of the amount? It is in the work in progress in the assembly. Okay, so this is how we will be allocating the total cost of a process costing into cost of goods finished and cost of goods not finished. Okay, so we will stop at this point. We have to study further, but we will stop for this video and we will continue the rest in the next video. Thanks a lot for watching. Thanks a lot for being with me.